Okay, we're going to start off with Unit 6 circles and talk about just the vocab behind these to start with. So, for instance, a circle. What is a circle? A circle is a set of all points equal distance from a given point, or the center. A set of all points equal distance from a given point called the center. So, however I can tell, that's probably a picture of a circle. That should not be new, but if you put a point in the middle of the circle, we call that the center. Let's say we're going to call that point P. So when you're naming a circle, you name it either by its center, so a couple different ways you'll see this. You'll just call it circle P. Or they could draw, it's like a little circle, that's the symbol for a circle with a dot in it, and then just a capital letter for that point. So circle P is either written out circle P or with the little circle symbol next to it. A radius, hopefully you remember that from middle school or elementary school. It's a segment that with endpoints at the center and on the circle. Segment with endpoints at the center and on the circle. Okay, so if you have this is our center P, then a radius would go from the center to the circle to the edge. So that represents the segment. One's on the center, one's on the edge, and we'll call that A. So segment A, P, be a radius. Anything goes from center to the edge. Diameter is just a segment with endpoints. Segment with endpoints on the circle. So it does have to go through the center. So if this is still circle P we're dealing with, I'm going to draw a segment that goes through the center. That was A, we're going to call this one over here B. So segment AB would be the diameter because it goes through the center of the circle. A chord is another type of segment we have, which might be new to some of you. A chord is just a segment that has endpoints on the circle. So this one does not have to go through the center, so we'll put center as P still, okay? So any chord that connects the edge of the circle, any segment that connects the edge of the circle by 2 points, that's called a chord. So let's make these C and we'll say D. So segment CD is a chord, and a diameter is just a special type of chord because it has to go through the center, whereas a regular chord does not have to go through the center. Alright, a secant. Difference between a chord and a secant. A secant needs to extend outside the circle. So it's a line, you could say it's even a segment or a ray, but a line that intersects the circle in exactly 2 places. So I'll say a line needs to go, we'll still call this circle P, just so we're on all these. It goes through the circle, and it has to intersect the circle in two places. So the main thing, it has to extend outside the circle. I say that is because we could have a ray, so like this side doesn't extend past the circle, but that side does, and that's still considered a secant. It goes through the circle. It could even be a segment that goes through the circle, but it has to extend outside of the circle to be a secant, because just what's called inside the circle, if those 2 points go away, now we just have a chord. So secant goes past the circle. Alright, a tangent is another type of line, segment, or line. It's a line that intersects the circle at exactly one place. So a tangent is really on the outside of a circle, but it does hit the circle in one place. So we'll call this still circle P. And I'm going to draw a line out here. I'm going to put a point. That line on the outside, let's give it letters. Let's call this like R and S. So line RS is a tangent line. So that's tangent. Okay, line RS is tangent to circle P, and this point where it intersects, we'll say point R is called the point of tangency. That means that is where that point R is where the tangent line intersects the circle. So that's called point R, is called the point of tangency. I didn't see the point of making a whole other box to show you that this point is called the point of tangency. This is called the tangent line. Okay, again, a tangent could be a line, a ray, a segment, but it only intersects the outside of a circle. Alright, now we're going to talk about angles. Those are all types of line segments or lines. A central angle is located at the center of a circle. So it's an angle with the vertex at the center. Okay, and let's see, it's two sides that are radii. And that looks like a funny looking word. You know, a radius connects the center of the circle, say P, to the edge of the circle, which we called like A. So we said PA was a radius. So to be a central angle, it just has to have two radii, or we don't call them radiuses. So let's call this C. The angle formed by the vertex at the center and these two radii create this angle in here, which is called the central angle. The angle that's formed at the center of the circle. So we just say like angle CPA. That would be an angle at the center of the circle. Okay. Let's look at the next one. We have another type of angle. This one's called an inscribed angle. An inscribed angle is an angle with a vertex on the circle. And the two sides are chords. we'll just keep P in the center just to say it's still circle P. If you have something like this, to be an inscribed angle, all three of those points have to be on the circle. An inscribed angle is when the vertex is on the circle, okay? And the other two sides represent chords, so they have to connect to other points on the circle. Can't go to the middle. It's got to just be 3 points on the circle. So I would say like angle EFG would be an inscribed angle. It's an angle on the circle. Alright, so those were angles. We have an angle at the center or an angle on the circle. Now we have what's called arcs. An arc's like the curvy part of the picture. So a minor arc is an arc measured less than 180 degrees. And we're just going to say less than 180 degrees. Okay. Hopefully you can remember from elementary school, a circle's 360 degrees. So less than 180 means it has to be less than half the circle. Okay, so let's say this is point P, that's the center of the circle. Let's say this was C and this was A. So a minor arc is less than half the circle. So I'm going to highlight from A to C would be less than half the circle, and an arc is the curvy part. So the arc symbol would look like this, arc A, C. Okay? The other thing to know about a minor arc is you name it by 2 points on the circle. So 2 points on the circle, and it has to be less than half the circle if it's going to be a minor arc. So you probably guess what a major arc is. It's an arc that measures greater than 180 degrees. So in our picture, we'll say that's P, say this is A, this was C, and we're going to put D over here. Okay, I'll just draw an example. So one example would be these 3 letters. Okay, to be a major arc, you need to have 3 points on the circle. You need 3 points on the circle, and it has to be over half the circle, 180 degrees, so over half the circle. And we could have said another example, we could do or like ADC. Doesn't matter which way we go. Or you could do CAD. As long as the 3 points you choose create over half the circle of the curved part. Okay, the arc is the curved part. A semicircle, guess what? That's exactly half. So an arc with endpoints on the diameter. So again, I'm going to call this circle P. Back real fast. What did I call the diameter? I said A and B. So we'll say this was A over here. Oops, that is not an A, Miss Campbell. A, B, and to name a major arc, we actually need, or to name a, we'll put C in here. To name a semicircle, we're still going to use 3 points, but the endpoints that you use have to be halfway around. It has to be on the diameter. So we're going to still call this arc ACB. If you were to say ABC, if you start here and went to A, B, and then C, that would be over half the arc. So we can't do that. And the way I drew it, this would be ACB would be half the arc. So again, we're going to use 3 points. To identify a half of a circle, semicircle. Alright, let's look at a picture now with a whole bunch of different letters. Let's give one example of each of these. So if I were you, I'd pause the video, try to find an example of each of these, and then turn it back on and see if we get the same thing. Now I'm not going to write down every example, so there could be more than one correct answer here. So for like this first one, the center of this circle is F, or the center of the other circle would be C. So you can have more than one correct answer. A radius connects the center to an edge, so if you want to do like the little circle over here, you could say CB or CD. If you want to do the bigger circle, you could say FG or FE, it just has to go from the center. The next one's chord. Chord is anything that connects the edges, so I would say segment EH is an example of a chord, or as an example of a secant has to extend, so I would say line EH. So symbols are important here. Chord is just within the circle, so segment EH is in the circle, whereas a secant extends past the circle, so line EH goes out past the circle. Alright, diameter, the only example I see is like EG. Tangent's a line that just intersects the outside of a circle, so we could say line AB. We have two options on the point of tangency. If I'm looking at this circle, I would say A is the point of tangency. If we look at the other circle, you could have B as the point of tangency. Semicircle is an arc that has 3 letters that makes it halfway around, so I could say like arc EAG is one example, or EHG. A minor arc is something that's less than half the circle, so if I want to just look at this one, you could say like GH, arc GH. A minor arc is 2 letters. You could do like arc BD. Anything that's less than half the circle. Okay? A major arc, though, needs to be over halfway around the circle, and it needs to include 3 points. So you could do on this little one BID, or DIB, that's over half. You could pick a lot of letters on this one, as long as, like, if you did HEG, that would get you over halfway around. Let's just do these one. BID. Okay. That's over halfway around this one over here. A central angle is the angle at the center, so I'm going to say angle BCD. Inscribed angle is the angle that has to have all 3 points on the circle. So I would say angle like GEH. You can only use, for inscribed, you can only use points that are on the circle when you're naming that angle. Alright, so that's some vocab and how to identify it in a picture.